disabilities spend 40% more than the families that don't have a child with disabilities with them. So 40% more is for me a very big figure. For this woman I'm looking at, this woman I'm thinking about, that was abandoned by this man when the man understood that he had a baby who was disabled, and simply walked out of the house, and this poor woman has to carry this baby. I have met them on the streets of Kampala, even women carrying their babies with big heads, with hydrocephalus, with all sorts of disabilities, and trying to beg so that they can also offer their children the basic needs of their life. And so for us as Ugandans, we need to start from that point. There are very many issues for us to talk about with children with disabilities. They are taken to schools, and the schools are telling them, we can't manage. Even the teachers we have...
Much as we are talking and advocating for inclusion.
Oh yes, even the teachers we are talking about are not trained enough to deal with children with special needs. And that is the reason they will tell you, we can't afford to have that child with a big head, we can't afford to have that child with a hydrocephalus. And so, as a government, what are we doing? We, as a government of Uganda, we are signatory to very many frameworks, including the Livingston action that is responsive for providing social protection to all the people of Uganda. It was made by the African Union. We are a signatory of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People Living with Disabilities. Actually, Article 28 commits us to ensuring a dignified livelihood to people living with disabilities, without leaving out, of course, the children living with disabilities. The Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, Article 35, actually embodies us and actually gives us a role and a commitment for us to provide for a dignified livelihood for the people living with disabilities in Uganda. The National Social Protection Policy also requires that we provide social protection, basic services, both the government and the society. You know, whenever we talk about government, the people down there try to get out of it. No, we are saying that from the household up to government, all of us are committed by the National Social Protection Policy to provide basics to these children living with disabilities, to ensure a dignified livelihood for people with disabilities, and therefore a whole of society approach needs to be made to ensure social protection that is responsive, because as the child continues to grow up, you need mobility in terms of either a wheelchair or somehow this child must move to the toilet, to the bathroom, to the school. If you have to move with this child to the market, you need to have this child in a wheelchair so that you can make sure that you are in the market, but your child is with you there other than locking them in the house. We make them vulnerable when we leave them home with even their siblings, most of whom cannot take care because these children need care. And so social protection embodies all of us, from the household to government.
Now, Honorable, you've mentioned and highlighted what needs to be done, but you want to look at specific interventions that you want. For example, when we talk about the broader perspective of persons with disability, government almost in all programs, there has been something ring-fenced.
Sure.
Now we have the grant for persons with disabilities, where there is money specifically. If they are 5+, government gives them money. In almost all government programs, talk about them, there's something ring-fenced for that particular category of people. For the children, I highly doubt that something specifically targeting children with disability, not any extra mark given to them, not what, but of course now government is advocating for inclusion, that don't have special schools for them, let them study with others, because at the end of the day they are going to work in the same space. Now if you've isolated them all along and then you bring them, so now that is government. We won't say that there are special schools for that particular. So what is it that you MPs want government to do that is going to cause a change that they have not done right?
You rightly said that this government does not have any grant for either the children generally or actually specifically the children living with disabilities.
There is
no grant whatsoever, I'm telling you. And yet we have all these frameworks. The Children's Act that was amended, the PWD Act of 2020, the Equal Opportunities Act of 2006, the Human Rights Act. All these specify that we need to have such benefits for children living with disabilities. And I want to thank government for the efforts they are doing to ensure some social protection reaches to some people. The Senior Citizens Grant, of course, it trickles down to the orphaned children that these older persons stay with. We look at the UEP, the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Fund. So these women, poor women who are looking after the children with disabilities, can join the groups and access some money for economic empowerment. The Youth Livelihood Support Program can assist some of these children living with disabilities. We have a MIOGA, we have PDM, we even have the special grant for older persons. All these are grants. And then under the social security, we have NSSF. But what we are saying is this: there is a challenge in all this, all the same. Much as government has tried their best, the labor, work for pay that the government provides, both in the rural and the urban, there is NutriCash in West Nile to support pregnant women and lactating women. All this is intended to ensure that the people living with these children can support them. But there is a challenge still. One, the targeting. Because the targeting of the people who are vulnerable into all these programs requires that the people have a national identity card. Most of the vulnerable women and parents and guardians don't have IDs. And those who tried to get the IDs, IDs have anomalies. They were written badly, they were not written correctly, others possibly have lost them in the midst of the many things that happen around us in this country. And so we couldn't make the national ID the only document from which we should target such vulnerable people. We needed to use other means of really identifying and documenting so that we can target these vulnerable people.
Because for now it's only the national ID.
Yes.
Yes,
again,
that can be used to access government services.
But I know that government can come up with an alternative identification for people who are as vulnerable as this. Because if government is declaring that even in the national IDs they gave, 48% of Ugandans don't have them. And I know most of them are these very vulnerable people who couldn't come to Kololo to pick IDs, who may not even necessarily reach the district NIRA offices. When you go to West Nile, the NIRA offices are only in Arua. So how do you expect this woman from Maracha to come to Arua because they want a national ID? How do you expect someone from Terego to come and pick the ID in Arua? It becomes very difficult, and therefore they are left out of the loop. And secondly, the loan-based livelihood support programs are very prohibitive for vulnerable households.
How?
Because this woman has no house almost. She has no land. Maybe she's settling in a very small kind of kiosk-related facility. And so how does she invest the 1 million of PDM and even be able to pay back when actually the child she bore has nowhere to sleep, has no milk to take, cannot even access school, she cannot even buy the books? So how do you keep this money with this woman and even expect her to pay back? So the loan-based livelihood support is a bit prohibitive for the very vulnerable households. And therefore, government needs to cater for cash transfers for such households. If they were identified through data and statistical systems, if they were identified and targeted well without using blanket targeting of a national ID, they would have their own niche, which we call the responsive social protection interventions. Responsive is by putting yourself in the shoes. If it were you, would you manage to take PDM money, Emioga money, and even assure us that you can pay it back if you cannot even afford a kilogram of posho for a night?
Definitely
it becomes very tricky. And so what we are saying is that I think we need to sit down and look at responsive social protection that will put yourself in the shoes and be able to come out with an outfit that is intentional for the very, very vulnerable. The very vulnerable people actually have a multifaceted kind of poverty and vulnerabilities that actually will require multiple affirmative. Because even if you gave them free and universal education, all right, what about the books? What about the uniform? What about the food that is required for this child to be at school? They will not afford even then. And so we are better off sitting down and thinking more deeply about the vulnerabilities that these people go through. And the third one is for us, like with the PWD grant, the national PWD grant, it's targeting an individual.
Yes.
And the example of Zambia is that Zambia government targets a family that has a person living with a disability. Because if a family is living with a child with a disability, that means the whole family is almost disabled in the way they are going to handle life. And so the government is better off targeting family and not necessarily an individual in that family.
Now,
and that is why we need the child disability benefit that will go to the family. The good thing is that we have structures. We have the village health teams. We have the community health extension workers, the CHUs, that they have recently established. We have all the vice chairpersons of local councils up to LOC 5 are mandated in the Local Governments Act to be the watchmen for children and family protection. And I don't know whether they know their mandate. I don't know whether there has been any training for them to ensure that they perform that, they execute the mandate. We also have parasocial workers. In my district, like I expect all other districts to have, we have a parasocial worker at every village.
Whose responsibility is to do what?
Ministry of Gender trained them with support from UNICEF to ensure, first of all, they look out on the households in their villages, whether there are children in those households and whether those children are enjoying their rights to basic health, basic education and basic social services. And to make sure they are whistleblowers, just in case there was a household where a child was being tortured or abandoned or mistreated in any way or deprived. And then they work in liaison with the CDO to mention this household so that the CDO can come around and know, ask questions, interrogate why the child in this household is being mistreated, defiled, abused, or done anything. And so we have the CDOs. We have chairpersons of women councils at every house, actually up to the household level. Every village has a chairperson, women council. It is the women who bear these children. And so I don't expect any woman, especially who is in such leadership, to not to care even why children are getting pregnant at young age, and more so a child with a disability being abused in such a way. When there is a chairperson women council, there is a vice chairperson of local council whose mandate is to look after these children. And so we have enough structures for us to do the identification of these children with the disabilities, to do the documentation and also be able to create a database per village to give us where these children are and what they are doing and whether they are enjoying the rights of children with disabilities as stated in all the frameworks that we have in the country.
Now, I'll be going for a short break, but when I return, Honorable, you head this Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, and of course, there are various aspects or programs targeting social protection. But when I look at the budget for the financial year 2024-2025, all budgets that go to social protection were slashed seriously. We've just been talking about the special grant for older persons.
Sure.
Completely anything disability, some were slashed even beyond a half.
Of course.
Yeah. Of course. Now, when we talk about the SAGE, I don't know, Honorable, because when I look at the number of the beneficiaries and how much was allocated,
and the number that are entitled,
the math doesn't math up. I don't know if that money, when it's done, now they forget their quarterly 25,000. So the budgets under there were cut. Now you're advocating for child benefits. Is it that we don't appreciate social protection as a country? Is it that you, our representatives, are not doing much to convince the powers that be? But let's handle that after this break.
Sure.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Step into a world of excellence, comfort and pride with Royal Foam Furniture, crafted to perfection right here in Uganda. We bring you state-of-the-art living room furniture and bedding products at affordable prices. Our wide variety of mattresses include orthopedic, pillow top, spring mattresses suitable for institutions like hotels and many others for home comfort. With every piece telling a story of royal excellence, our products are built with the highest quality materials made to last. Experience royalty with Royal Foam Furniture, proudly made in Uganda, so buy Uganda and build Uganda. Visit our showrooms at Ginger Road, Chambogo Junction, Bukota Chisasi Road, and on Victoria Mall, Entebbe, on the first floor.
When you want to relax your body and refresh your mind, welcome to Hotel La Confidential, Aroa's premier destination for luxury and comfort. The only hotel in Aroa City offering a serene atmosphere, breathtaking scenery. Come and discover our exclusive wellness club with packages that include a fully equipped gym, a rejuvenating sauna, steam bath, and a great sky blue swimming pool. For events, our state-of-art conference halls and versatile event spaces are perfect for hosting shows, wedding receptions, birthdays, and more. Come and enjoy our cinema hall and unisex saloon, all designed to meet your entertainment and grooming needs. Bring your family and let your kids splash around in our beautiful kids water park. We are located on Aroa Pakwachi Highway in the heart of Aroa City. Don't wait. Visit us on www.hotelconfidential.com or call us on 0761 688 181.
Live from UBC studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that break. You're still watching Good Morning Uganda Extra, and we are looking at child disability benefits. And with me, I have the chairperson of the Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, where child with disability benefits is one of the forms of social protection that these members of Parliament on this forum are advocating for. But earlier, before we went for a break, Honorable, I was in the best of my mind wondering why social protection, given its importance and relevancy, is something that we saw tremendous budget cuts. Is it not a priority to maybe the members of Parliament? Aren't you doing much? What is it that we are lacking? In all aspects of social protection, I was looking at the budgets, they were tremendously slashed.
Sure. Actually, we keep talking about mindset change, creating awareness, educating publics. But I think we should begin from the executive. You know, social protection is a new paradigm that comes with the new economics. And so it requires that people understand what exactly it is. We have done a lot in poverty alleviation, even when we are not doing well yet. We know that most of the people, maybe even here in this room, may never be poor. But unfortunately, all of us are vulnerable. You can be vulnerable, and even your wealth looks at you and it will not do you anything. When you are vulnerable, you need an intervention that can support you go through the vulnerability until you come out of that. I can be moving out of here and I'm hit by a motorcycle. I will be disabled then and there. I will need support. I will be vulnerable automatically. And so I will need social protection. Social protection is intended not only to alleviate poverty, but to create and build resilience so that people are supported, so that risks and shocks are mitigated, and that the people, even if they fell into shocks, they can easily come out because of the way you have built their resilience. And so if everybody knew that much as you will never be poor in your life, you rich man out there, you are vulnerable. You can be disabled and fail to come out of that house, to even make money with the wealth you have. So the need for us to know that social protection is for all of us. We all will need it at one time. And therefore, we are better off planning for a safe landing for all of us. We are very good candidates of vulnerability and shocks. COVID gave us a little bit of how you can be vulnerable even when we have an intercooler. And then the government announces no car should be seen out. Only bicycles will come out. Can you ride a bicycle from an intercooler? No. You are already vulnerable. You can't move to your farm. You can't do anything. You can't actually...
You can't...
You have lost a job. They have told you, come out of the job. No more income. No more salary. Even the job has slashed the workers. You are one of those who have been slashed. You are therefore vulnerable. And so, the executive arm of this government must understand why we talk about social protection. Even when they have a lot of outfits for poverty alleviation, we need an outfit for vulnerabilities where all of us are candidates, including them. Secondly, I think as Parliament, we have really tried our best to advocate for social protection. The budget is still very bad. At one point, it was going to 0.5%. We thought we were going towards 1% at least, even when we are doing the worst in the whole of Africa, because most of the African countries now at 1%, 1.5, 1.7. For us, we are even below 1% of the GDP. But as if that was not enough, like you said, the budget we are in now slashed almost all the benefits for special interest groups, including children living with disabilities who are living in rehabilitation centers.
Yes.
Food and non-food items were even slashed. So I don't know how you pick a child with a disability from their home and you pretend to go and rehabilitate them, and instead you cannot even feed them. I think that's double jeopardy. And so we need to be true to the people of Uganda and the children living with disabilities, so that we take care, we offer them a dignified livelihood and offer them the basics of their life. And I'm very glad, and all of us members of Parliament, that His Excellency has instructed that all that had been slashed be reinstated in the coming budget. We are very hopeful. I wish the PSST was watching this program, because it is one thing for us to appropriate and it is another thing for him to release money. That is where we find another problem. We appropriate and thump our chests. We have done it, we have done it. And then it reaches release of money, and that is when the Ministry of Finance will tell you, no, we didn't collect much, no, we didn't collect this, no, we cannot, no, we shall come up with what, and then by the end of the financial year, they have only released less than 70% of what we appropriated. So we need budget discipline.
Now, Honorable,
we need to track as members of Parliament. Let us track budget performance. If the releases are not coming in the first quarter, questions should begin there. Why didn't you release the money you were supposed to release for the first quarter? So that we don't wait for the year to end and then we ask, why didn't you release, when we are doing a post-mortem. Let us track budget performance at quarterly level, so that the Minister of Finance continues to answer questions on why they are not releasing the money as appropriated.
Now, here you've talked money. And let's also look at accountability. There is something that baffles me most of the times. When I look at government programs aimed at alleviating poverty, you find that one person, and I stand to be corrected, our viewer there, but good I have a representative of an entire constituency.
Sure.
And Honorable, I know in your constituency these things also happen.
Of course.
You find one person benefiting from youth livelihood, AMYOGA, PDM, GROW project, almost all government interventions.
Yes.
This one person keeps on looping and tapping. But then the very individual is still claiming to be poor, and indeed poor. Yet government has put up these avenues, saying, no, for these vulnerable groups, specialist groups, come and take this money. Now, where is the missing link? Much as you may ask government for funds,
sure,
but if you're not having impact in these funds, sometimes I feel like, shouldn't these people even be arrested? Because if you're keeping on getting government,
that's what the Prime Minister said.
Fitting. But for you, remaining poor every day. Now we're advocating for child disability benefits. If you have a program, this person gets money to buy a wheelchair, this person, but still for them, they are there.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, Honorable.
It's very unfortunate that much as very many Ugandans continue to blame the civil servants and the executives, and sometimes us, the MPs, mostly, for not being accountable, for not being transparent, for not reaching them with things that they want us to give to them, this government has really given things. In my district alone, just half a year, January to June last year, my district had received 600 million shillings in these economic livelihood support interventions. My district is Chegegwa, and UWEP, YLP, EMYOGA, SEGOP, National Grant for PWDs, all those monies came to my district in 6 months, and we had 600 million coming and going to the people direct. And at one point, when we were disbursing money last August, I tried to ask a joking question. I said, you women, you have come here to get money for UWEP. Can I see those who have got some money from EMYOGA? And some hands were up. Can I see those who have now got PDM? And some hands were up. The question you ask, if you have benefited from UWEP, from senior citizen grant, from the PWD grant, from Emyoga, from PDM, now you are looking out for GROW. Really, when the Prime Minister came out and said, but why don't we take them to make a statement at police? Why you have decided to remain poor even when you have got all that? People were quarreling. And today I continue to understand her more. You get every other money that comes. It is the same people that are targeting every program that comes. NutriCash, they are there. Everything. Me, I'm in a refugee hosting district. Chegegwa, I have Chaka 1 and Chaka 2. Fortunately, Chaka 1 was recently given out to the people by the president. We are waiting for degazettement because before degazettement, we are still in the air. The presidential pronouncement was got, but the degazettement has not taken place. We are waiting for Parliament to do that, a motion to Parliament. But what I want to emphasize is that even under UNHCR and the many programs, the one we call the famous Dr. Deep, and very many other programs, they have tried to target the households that are hosting refugees with money, with inputs, with things. Recently, we were officiating at households getting tukutukus so that they can enhance their farming. Households that are hosting refugees. The same households have benefited from Emyoga. The same households have benefited from PDM. They have benefited from every other program. But you will be surprised that when you carry out a council meeting or a village meeting, the same people will tell you they are still poor. As if now poverty is a trademark of some of the people in Uganda. We need to change a lot of things. As we continue to advocate for the child disability benefits, I would like to emphasize that we shall need accountability from the beneficiaries.
Yes.
The social workers, the CDOs, the chairpersons, vice chairpersons, LC1, you will have to go to these households who have benefited and ensure that the money they get, the grant they get, is put onto this child. And note that they are going to buy new dresses and new shoes and new phones.
Let me just give you an example, Honorable. When I move on the streets of Kampala, I see a number of children with hydrocephalus
and spina bifida.
And spina bifida, others with a number of disabilities. Yet,
wheels.
I stand to be corrected. But using my journalistic instincts and knowledge and some of the stories I've covered, these very children we see on the streets, fellow Ugandans, there is a home that looks after them.
Yeah.
Now their parents go and remove them from there, bring them on the streets and beg.
Yes.
Yet many of these children are being fed and looked after. A mother picks the child in the morning, makes money
from the child.
Then takes the child for lunch and takes the child to sleep over and have everything.
As she goes away with the money.
As she goes away with the money. Now, I'm not condemning anybody, but it befits meaning. Why then government is making these investments?
Sure.
You know, a child, the other home would give this child shelter. You're exposing the child to sunshine. Now maybe rain. Much as we are pushing for all of these, how best can we overcome such, like also when you look at the Karamajongs, some of them
come on the streets.
You know, this baby you're giving money is not even benefiting from them.
Absolutely.
But a mature woman will go buy a drink. There's a place called Chikaramoja. And one time we went there with a collective and investigative story. The people you're giving money on the streets
are not the beneficiaries.
Were drunk, doing all forms of immorality, and all that, and you're like, Bano bakola wa. They wake up and they go on the streets, then they are now merrymaking, jubilating, getting pregnant continuously because of the human right and all, whatever that happens there. As a member of parliament, we have challenges, but how do we address this? Could I call it immorality, inhuman behavior by some of the Ugandans holding these vulnerable children that we are talking about today?
In my district in Kyegegwa, I have benefited from the homes that are looking after such children, especially those with hydrocephalus and spina bifida and many other bone-connected ailments, disabilities. And I'm sure Cynthia is watching me on this TV because she's one of those who have helped my district children that are born with disabilities to make sure they are hosted at the home it is between Mengo and Rubaga. And sometimes if the matter is bigger, they will send them to Mbale where they have their specialized hospital called Chua Hospital for children with disabilities that are related to hydrocephalus and spina bifida. And so she has so many children in the home at Rubaga. Some of the children are picked by their guardians and caregivers to bring to the streets to beg, even when they have free meals, free accommodation, and some treatments that they are supposed to undertake. Still the guardians pick them out and come to the streets to beg. After begging, they take back the children to the homes and then they walk away with the money. I want to implore these homes, because we don't have only that one in Rubaga. We have many more homes. We have development partners that have come up with these homes and giving care to these children with disabilities. But I want to implore the homes to please be more rigid on these guardians that are picking children from you. Even when you offer this much, they continue to misuse them, abuse them, and abuse their rights on the streets by begging for things that won't benefit the children themselves. That is the accountability aspect we have been talking about. Ugandans, even when they are in such vulnerable situations, fail to account to even the little they get. I want to even assume that the people who are walking on the streets of Kampala, because it is hardly that we who are in cars will stop to give these people money. It is the ones who are walking. The poor people walking, hustling, are the ones who spare a coin to these people as they continue to beg because they are in their reach. But they are benefiting from the sweat of the poor people. And these poor people who give away the coin of 500 go with the mind and praise God that they have supported the vulnerable child. Unfortunately, the support they give goes to those that would not actually have benefited from it. Very unfortunate scenario. We need to call back the spirit of accountability, the spirit of transparency, the spirit of humanity that has really get torn in this country, so that everybody who is looking after or caregiving onto the child with a disability really accounts to the country, accounts to themselves, and accounts to every other person who feel sorry about the plight of these children. We cannot do much, but me, I get so devastated when I see these children out and when I know that there is a home that takes care of them, because if they can come and pick children from Kyegegwa, why wouldn't they pick children on Ginger Road, where people are begging for them, and yet we have a home just in Rubaga and other homes in this Kampala town. Unfortunately, we don't have homes in the rural places. We have most of them here in Kampala. But if in Kampala, the children with disabilities are with caregivers begging, and for me in Kyegegwa, mine are not begging, but I can be able to connect them and they are in the home. It beats my understanding as a member of parliament. And I think we need to, as a committee on gender, we may have to call on these homes and sit and talk to them, and also the Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, and understand why these children on Ginger Road, these children on all the other streets where I meet them, cannot be picked and kept in those homes.
Well, Honorable, indeed, we must move out of here to allow more programming to continue. But before we do this, let me just have your parting shot on the topic of the day.
Yes, my parting shots go back to government. We need to revise the National Social Protection Policy of 2015. I think having gone through COVID and all the deprivations it came with, I think we need now a new face of the National Social Protection Policy, and also new definitions of poverty and vulnerability and how the interventions are going to work, so that we come up with a whole of society approach. Every household must be compelled to take care of the children with disabilities, up to government. And for government, I think we need the National Health Insurance Scheme. The children living with disabilities, especially those with hydrocephalus and other disabilities, some of them actually live on Pampers. And the Pampers on which we put a tax as government. We thought that by taxing those Pampers that people use, that we would be collecting money, thinking that it is these high-end women who are bearing their babies and need a lot of this that we were taxing. Little did we know that we are actually taxing even the vulnerable people who have children who can only live on Pampers, or else they won't be managed when excretions come. Even the older persons at their old age require these Pampers, or else their families won't manage them, because they cannot walk 2-3 steps to the toilet. They need to be padded so that they can do it well. And so we need to revise the tax on those Pampers. Secondly, we need to revise our budget on social protection to raise it to at least 1%. I think this is not asking for too much. Given the leakages that we get that are spelt by the IGG in this country on all the money that we collect, the leakage is very high. And so if we only controlled those leakages, we would have the money to do this. And so let us all together find a way of containing the corruption and the financial leakages, the budget leakages that we have, and the slow way that we absorb even the money we borrow, so that it raises our interest, and then we end up spending on what would not actually be giving basics to the people. And of course, as the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, for which I'm not only the founding but also the chairperson now, we shall continue to do our advocacy. We shall continue to go for oversight to make sure we have evidence-based information for Parliament, because in Parliament you don't bring emotions, you bring evidence so that you can articulate issues to ensure budgets and policies are done, and we protect the children with disabilities. And lastly, I would like to implore government that we have avoided the children enough, to the extent that we even abolished the National Children's Authority. And that's painful. With the 49.9% children we have in the country, I think we need to reinstate the National Children's Authority. We need to start a database that will track our children from birth to death, to ensure that at every stage we are tracking their progress. They don't die on the way. We cannot lose them anywhere. This child at 3 years, we want to see the child in an early childhood education center. At 6 years, we want to see this child in primary school. At 12 years, we want to see them go to senior 1, and that kind of thing. But we can only do that if we have a social registry. This country should invest in a social registry that will track people from childhood to adulthood, or from birth to death. That is what we call the life cycle approach to social protection.
Well, thank you so much, Honorable Flavia, who is the chairperson of the Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection. Very passionate about social protection, and of course, every sentence she opens the eyes of many into what we should do as a country. Children are the next generation of any country.
Absolutely.
We cannot pay a blind eye when we have so many children with disabilities whose full potential is not achieved because you've not paid attention or you've not created that environment that enables them to live to their full potential. Have a lovely day. May the good Lord bless you. For God and my country. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.